Welcome to the Small Church Podcast, the podcast for church leaders who want to make a difference in their communities. We're your hosts, Tony Marr and Bruce Montgomery, and we're excited to be with you today. On this podcast, we'll be discussing the latest trends, strategies, and ideas for effective leadership in small-sized churches. So whether you're a pastor, a ministry leader, or a volunteer, this podcast is for you. Each week, we'll bring you interviews with experienced church leaders who have valuable insights to share. We'll also explore topics like team building, community outreach, spiritual growth, and much more. So if you're looking for practical advice and inspiration to help you lead your church with excellence, you've come to the right place. The Small Church Podcast is brought to you by Higher Ministries. Higher Ministries is an organization that exists to help Christian leaders in the churches they serve through coaching and consulting, all for little or no cost. For more information on Higher Ministries or to find out more about the Small Church Podcast, please visit higherministries.com. Thanks for tuning into this week's edition of the Small Church Podcast. Well, welcome back to the Small Church Podcast. I am Tony Marr and honored to be with you here today. Last week, we had our guest, Jim McCleron, who spent some time with us discussing online church. His church in Paradise Cove, church in Naples, Florida, is 100% online. That wasn't the plan when they started the church, but he planted his church just a few months before the COVID pandemic hit in March of 2020, and as a result of that, was forced to go online and saw his church flourish in that environment. In the years since the pandemic, he has continued to maintain his online church and is seeing people from all over the world get connected into the Christian community and continue their faith and their growth and discipleship in their pursuit of Jesus. And so this week, we want to continue our conversation with Jim as we were discussing last week online church. So I hope you enjoy part 2 of online church with Jim McCleron. Jim, how would you respond to a church that we have a lot of churches that we work with and listeners that are in very, very rural areas that don't have the opportunities for the high-speed internet that you were talking about, and yet they want to be able to utilize their online service. How would you recommend to them going about that maybe they don't have the ability to live stream, but they could record and then go somewhere else to upload their services later?
Yeah, you can do that. You can record your service. You can put it on your website. You can get a Facebook page and put it on your Facebook page. You can get a YouTube channel and put it on the YouTube channel. There are all kinds of ways to put it on the internet without live streaming. You don't need the you don't need the higher end internet to do that. It just will take you a lot more time to upload it. But since people are watching something that's already uploaded, that doesn't matter. You can hit the button and walk away from it and come back half hour later or whatever it is.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who is new to live streaming their service? They hear your story about how you had 500 people from all over the country, as far away as Nevada, and Texas and Colorado, places all over, and they're a small little rural church in Kentucky that is excited about the opportunity to reach people that will never come to their small little church in Kentucky. How do they get the word out about what they're doing?
Facebook, the church's Facebook page, the pastor's Facebook page, Mary, who sits in the second pew, her Facebook page, Lola, who comes with her granddaughter every week, the granddaughter's Facebook page, the social media contacts of the people in the congregation, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Truth Social, whatever it is, whatever social media platform they're on, they can put an invitation. And the pastor can even, or somebody else, can even write up a paragraph or a couple of short sentences of what to post for the service that we're going to record and upload this week. And then off you go. Other place to look is LinkedIn. And as I mentioned earlier, every development seems to have its own Facebook page. So the people that live in developments or in communities that have Facebook pages, you ask them to post to their Facebook pages.
Very good.
Another thing that I'm going to start doing is on Facebook, you can boost your post for like $10, $15.
Yeah, just a couple bucks.
Just a couple of bucks. I don't have a great big budget, but I can afford that. And I decided to give a look at that because I've got a buddy here who has horses. Because of the hurricane, the main hay provider went out of business. So they're paying like $10 to $15 more a bale of hay than they're used to paying. He made connections with a farmer so that he's got his own personal hay coming. And now he's selling that. And he's selling it through those boosted Facebook posts, just at, $10, $15 a week. And he's got all the business that he wants right now. Now, that's horses and hay and horse people, but everybody's got friends and everybody's got connections, and even the local church Facebook page or the pastor, you put $10 to $15 on your post, you're going to reach a lot more folks, and you can determine the geographic area that they're in and all that. Facebook has some videos that explains how you do that. You can talk to your grandson, and he'll tell you how to do it too.
Jim, I want to switch gears a little bit for a few minutes. The biggest pushback that I hear to online church, and from other pastors that I'm talking about and people that are doing it and people that are hesitant to try, is the ability to meet the spiritual needs of an online congregation. With 100% of your congregation being online, how do you respond to that? How do you meet the spiritual needs of your people? How do you provide pastoral care and support remotely?
So very early on, the gal that I mentioned that's in Nevada, she was someone that my wife knew. She had.
First off, Jim, let me just say how appreciative I am. I am born and raised in Nevada, and the fact that you are saying Nevada and not Nevada, I am so thankful for that. So sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to say how much that means to me as a Silver State born and bred, hashtag Vegas born. Continue.
You may be impressed, but it's by accident. I didn't know there was a wrong way to say it. But Diana in Boulder City started tuning into us because she came home from the hospital after a cancer surgery. They told her, you got to take all this chemo and all this radiation. It's during the pandemic. There's nobody to talk to. She's home alone with her husband and her dog. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? She, through Gail, tuned in and found hope. And she shared with us that she was going through cancer. And every Sunday morning, we prayed for her. And the folks who were online knew her through our talking about her, and they prayed for her. And as a result of those prayers and finding some other things that she could do, she lived. She beat the cancer. And it was a huge day when she, texted us on Sunday morning and said, I'm in remission. And all of us across the internet celebrated with her. She was connected to us, and those prayers helped her. She said, I can feel them. I had another lady who last year was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I think I was her first email. She emailed me. I had her phone number. I immediately called her And I said, talk to me, tell me what's going on. And she did, and I prayed with her over the phone, and we prayed for her on Sunday mornings. And a month later, the doctors told her, your tumor's gone. We gave hope and prayer and support, and healing came to her. People will message me on Facebook and say, please pray for my son, or I've got work issues going on. Just because I don't have face-to-face connection with them on Sunday doesn't mean that we can't communicate.
Sure.
They communicate. It comes differently than I've ever experienced it, but it comes, and God works through the technology. And prayer is not limited by our inability to be face to face. God works. God works, and God is touching those people. In terms of the messages on Sunday morning, I always ask for feedback, and I will say to them, I'm getting ready to put together a new message series. What would you like to hear about? What's something you're struggling with? What's something you'd like to learn? Sometimes I get responses, sometimes I don't. But I am using my ears to listen in ways that, I didn't do when I came out of seminary. Because through the technology, there's new ways of communicating. So, I'm tuned in. Are we able to be as tuned in as we would be if we were in person? Well, people show up to church on Sunday morning. It's 150 of them. There's 100 of them. There's 75 of them. They sit in the pew. They look at me. I look at them. A bunch of the communication is one way. I get verbal feedback, but unless May tells me that she's struggling with cancer, I don't know. And unless Joe tells me that his marriage is on the rocks, I don't know. And unless Bob tells me that he got busted for drunk driving again, I don't know. Whether I am in person or online, I am still dependent upon the people to communicate to me. Without that communication, being able to meet the spiritual needs doesn't happen. And people can be non-communicative in person as well as online, and people can communicate online as well as in person.
But for the person who does communicate, they do reach out to you. Your person in Boulder City or someone in Austin, Texas, that is maybe a part of your online church, and their marriage is struggling, or they are having questions about their faith. In a traditional church setting, you would say, let's go grab coffee. Or why don't you come over for dinner? You don't have those opportunities without hopping on a plane, and being a small church, those resources to do that are probably limited to none. So are you finding yourself getting on FaceTime, Zoom calls with people in other parts of the country, bringing the coffee shop, the local coffee shop, to a digital realm? Or is most of that simply happening through text and social media conversations?
It starts with text and social media. And as the need becomes more critical or more intense, then it's a cup of coffee on a Zoom call or a cup of coffee on FaceTime. And we talk about it. With an in-person crowd, maybe they'd come to my office, maybe we'd meet at a coffee shop, and, I would talk with them. And if the issue that they had was, beyond my expertise, Bobby, who got the drunk driving citation, if he were in person, I'd be saying, Bobby, you got to get yourself to an AA group. Or there's this counselor that I know. You need to go talk with him. Uh, and I would do the same thing online. You need to get an AA group in your area. Uh, you can find a counselor in your area. I'm going to check back with you on Tuesday to see if you've done that. Uh, so the same kinds of things that you do in person, you can do online. The only thing that I can't do online that I can do in person is I can't give you a hug. But everything else we can accomplish online.
So, Jim, how do you see the future of online church playing out? In a post-pandemic world, it seems like if you don't have an online presence, that you're missing out and you're almost being left behind. So, how do you see the long-term role of online ministry becoming more critical for the small church and the church as a whole?
I think that the future is hybrid, in person, and online at the same time. People's work worlds are in person and online, and people are getting accustomed to that and are transferring those expectations to the other places that they go. Uh, as the world becomes more complex, there is the need for uh, relationships and communication with people who live next door, as well as with people who live across the country. And community can be formed with the people next door and with people across the country. And as we can build relationships across the country, our family expands. And it's one of the ways of pulling this divided country back together again.
Yeah. Jim, my home church in Nevada, about 10 years ago, I was shocked to see that they were advertising that their weekly, advertising isn't a good word, but they were sharing that their weekend attendance was about 35,000 people. And having been born and raised in this church and knowing the size of their sanctuary, their auditorium, their worship center, and knowing some people that were still on staff there, I was thinking that's physically not possible unless they're doing 20 services a weekend. They're a church of about 10,000 people, not of a church of about 35,000 people. And so I called up a buddy of mine that was still on staff there and I said, okay, tell me what's going on here. I'm reading that you guys are saying you're a church of 35,000 people. And he said, Tony, we've got 25,000 people that are participating with our services online every single week, and we count them as part of our church. If you were to ask them where they went to church, what their church was, they would say that this was their home church. And we had a long conversation with me, giving a lot of pushback on him, a lot of the things that I've asked you today. And he had a educated and well thought out response for everything that I said about creating community, about meeting needs, about pastoral care, everything that we've talked about. And the church was seeing incredible impact through their online ministry. Just in the last couple of years, we've seen national headlines about churches that, because of the success that they experienced online during the pandemic, that even coming out of the pandemic, the role that their online ministry continues to have. I read about a church about a year ago, that a large church in Texas that was multiple thousands of people and multiple sites, that coming out of the pandemic, they decided to stick completely online. They even went so far as to selling their properties that they had there in Texas, building a studio, and now they've gone from having an average in-person attendance of several thousand people over multiple campuses to now they're all online, completely online, because of the impact that they saw that they were having. As you look at the future of your church there in Naples, you said that you're 100% online now. Do you have hopes of going back to a physical in-person service, or are you pretty devoted and committed to being 100% online into the future?
I want to do both. I want to be hybrid. So I am working towards getting physical presence here in Naples, as well as working towards growing the online ministry that we have going. And that may be part of just who I am. All the years of being in person, it's much more fun to talk to an in-person audience than it is to talk to a camera. And that may be just me, but I need that. I feed on that. I know that the online folks are there, they're listening, they're tuned in, but in order for me to be able to connect with them and do what I do online, I have to have pictures of who they are in my head.
Yeah.
And imagine the audience in the room or, on the other side of the camera. Imagine the audience, at their kitchen table with their cup of coffee, or sitting in their living room on their couch with the service up on a bigger screen. That's part of what it is I have to do. I went to seminary at Oral Roberts University, and it was back in the days when Oral was alive and around. Oral did a weekly radio program, and Oral would have to just talk to the microphone. Didn't know who was out there listening. He knew that there were thousands of people, but the one thing that he couldn't do on the microphone was the prayer at the end of the service. And so students would be lined up by the chaplain's office to be at the recording session of those radio shows, so that Oral had somebody he could actually put his hands on as he prayed. And maybe I'm a little like that. I need the in-person stuff, along with the ability to reach out much further with the online streaming technology stuff.
That's great. Jim, what would you say if you were sitting down face to face with a pastor of a small church that was wanting to explore the idea of going online, but was facing pushback from people in their church, maybe even leaders in their church, their elders or deacons, that had questions like we've asked today, but yet they could see the incredible potential, the possibility for kingdom expansion through online ministry? What would you say to them to encourage them and give them some practical advice for navigating that world and those conversations within their own congregation?
So one of the things that always comes to mind is people are afraid of change that they can't control. And I'm a person in the congregation, and I'm pushing back on it. I'm afraid that somehow this is going to change my experience. I'm afraid that somehow this is going to drain dollars that will prevent my in-person experience from happening the way it is. So there are a couple of things that I'd say is, one, assure your people that you're not going to change what happens to them on Sunday morning. They can come and have that same experience. But there are people who aren't able to come and have that experience because of distance, or there are people who are able to come and have that experience because of something that happened to them a few years back, and they're scared to death to step foot inside a church. There are some people who would walk across the room and open up a computer and look at it, who would never come and sit in our pew. And we want to reach them with the love of Christ and the power of the gospel. Just like it is, we want to reach the people who are here on Sunday. And I would appeal to their hearts that way. And the other thing that I would say is, we don't have to do this forever. Let's try it for 2 months, 6 months, a year, get some feedback, and then make a decision whether it is we want to continue.
That's great. I love that. So, Jim, we are about out of time here. I want to give you a moment that as you've been a pastor for many, many years, and pastors in large churches, small churches, now an online church, what would you like to say to our listeners, our listeners that are coming from many different walks of life, most of which are small church pastors or small church leaders or married to a small church leader or attend a small church and are just looking for ways that they can gain some practical insight to help make their church better use of the gifts that God has given them? What would you like to say to them in closing?
One of the things that I would like to say is that small churches have huge impact. It's easy to drive by the local mega church and say, wow, if I only had a building like that, if I only had staff like that, if I only had programming like that, we could reach a gazillion folks. But the truth is, the small church is reaching people as deeply and as effectively as that large church is. Just because a church is small, just because a church has a limited budget, doesn't mean that God is limited by those limitations that we face. God's able to do incredible things through each and every one of us. And more than the technology, and more than methods, and more than strategy, it's God. And it's the relationship with God. And it's being connected with His Spirit. And it's being in a position where I am open and I can hear from Him and I can follow the nudges of the Spirit and the leading of the Spirit. And it's about the courage of me to follow a leading or a nudge that seems crazy to me, or it's about the willingness to take the risk to try something I haven't tried before because I have this sense that the Spirit is leading me. I need to be tuned in to what God is doing and wants to do in and through me. And that's the key piece of all of this. If God hadn't brought people to me, if God hadn't given me the ability to understand the technology and to be able to work it, I wouldn't be able to do it. But because these were the doors that God opened, God made the way for me to walk through them and to make use of those opportunities. And, you know, the big question is, what are the doors that are open for you? What are the opportunities that God has placed in front of you? And if I look around and I have no idea what they are, the question is, God, show me. Show me the next door. Show me the next opportunity. Where are you leading? What is it that you want me to do? Who is it that you want to bring around me? Show me the next step, and I'll take it. And then I'll take the one after that and the one after that.
Well, Jim, we have to begin to shut things down. But it's been a wonderful time with you, and I know, as a friend, I know as a pastor with you, the things you've been talking about, taking that step, even if you didn't know what the next step was, is really true. And that God does that. And I think the small church just needs to have enough confidence to trust God and to step out and try new things. If they don't work, that you don't have to keep them, move to something else. But I want to thank you for sharing today. It was just fun to hear you talking about ministry and to share the successes and the glories that God's given you. Thanks, Jim.
Well, that is all the time that we have for today on this episode of the Small Church Podcast. Again, we want to thank you for listening, tuning in to part 2 of our conversation with Jim McCleron, pastor of Paradise Cove Church in Naples, Florida, and all of the great insights that he gave on how your small church can utilize all of the technology and resources available to reach people that might not ever step foot in the doors of your church. If you have more information, if you would like more information, I should say, on how you can get connected to Jim, how you can get connected to Paradise Coast Church, or how you could get connected to utilizing online resources in your church, visit higherministries.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Small Church Podcast, and we will see you all next week. Have a great week.